There's a story I want to share with you, and it's really part two of a blog that I wrote a couple of months ago that was called How I Lost God and Found My Way. After I posted that blog, my sister said to me, "Well, did you eventually come back to God? Because I noticed that you actually used the word God in a lot of your writings." And yes, I did eventually come back to God. The story of how I came back to God is something that I've never shared before in a public way, and this is the time. So, the story starts back in 1987. I was living in Western Massachusetts and I was in a really dysfunctional, abusive relationship. And one day I hit bottom. And I hit bottom hard enough that I was desperate enough that even though I had not believed in God since I left Judaism when I was 12 and a half years old, I thought, well, I'm so desperate, I'm going to go and pray to God. I went to my favorite place in nature, which was a cow pasture on the top of a hill overlooking the Connecticut River Valley, and across the way stood Mount Holyoke. It was such a beautiful, peaceful place. But that day I was in a lot of turmoil, and so I knelt down to pray at this fallen tree. But it had been so many years since I had had any belief in God that when I tried to pray, it just felt like nothing, there was nothing there, nobody home. And then this little voice came into my head, and it said, "Try Jesus." Now you have to understand that I was raised in the Jewish tradition, and I had been taught that Jesus was a false prophet, which meant to me that he was a liar and a fraud. And so I really didn't have any belief or any esteem for Jesus. But I was so desperate that I thought, well, if Jesus was who the Jews say he was, then he was just a regular human being who died, and if I pray to him, nothing will happen. Nothing good and nothing bad, just nothing. But if he is who the Christians say he is, maybe he could help me. I really don't remember what was the next thing that I thought or that I said. What I do remember is that he was there with me. My eyes were closed, so it was a visionary experience. But he was there. His presence was there. And I still feel a little bit too vulnerable to share all of the details of my communication with him. That's something that I'd rather share in a more personal setting. What I will say is that his message was about forgiveness. And what he said to me just blasted my heart wide open. And the love that I felt from him and for him is beyond anything that I've ever felt on the human level. He touched me so powerfully. It was incredibly healing. And all I wanted to do was follow him and be like him and be able to extend to others the forgiveness that he had extended to me. That experience in the cow pasture changed my life and set me on a very different spiritual path than what I had been on. Eventually, it led me to A Course in Miracles, which is the same Jesus, the same Yeshua that I met that day on that hilltop with the same message about forgiveness and unconditional love. And it was really through A Course in Miracles that I eventually came back to being comfortable with the Word God and getting a whole new understanding of who and what God is. So beyond words, so beyond any human image. And so I'm forever grateful for that day in the cow pasture when I met Yeshua, my teacher, my friend. my beloved.